Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Good morning. This is Tracy Hales-Vest with Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I'm talking with Jack Yerby about his brand new book, The Mystery of the Lost Will. Hi, Jack.
Hi.
Well,
how's it going?
It's going really well. I enjoyed reading The Mystery of the Lost Will. Even though I had read parts of it in workshop, reading the whole thing and seeing how it came together was really great.
Glad you liked it. I hope I succeeded in tying everything together.
You did. Well, before we go further, I guess since we have listeners, you should give them a little synopsis without giving it away.
Two teenage brothers search for a will that Wyatt Granger wrote, and he hid before he died. Kalani and Tristan are the two main characters, and they follow some rather vague and unclear clues to discover the secret. And in the process, they capture a gang of thieves. It's kind of based on an old Nancy Drew mystery. But what I've done differently is that I've developed the two main characters. They're not the shallow, two-dimensional characters that, like, the Hardy Boys were. When I read the Hardy Boys in my youth, I could never remember whether Frank or Joe was the blonde brother,
right,
or which one was older.
Right.
So what I did to give my characters some fullness is that I based these characters on actual teens, some friends of mine.
Well, they're great kids. I really like the brothers and their dad. Yeah, they're a good family. Let's see. Kalani is he's the tall one, right?
Right. And then his younger brother is 2 years younger, and he's shorter, stockier. And being the sons of a retired police detective from Houston, they've got a kind of a bent for mysteries anyway. And so when Kalani learns from his Navajo friend that old Mr. Granger probably wrote another will, but nobody knows where it is, he sets out to find it, and in this way help his Mr. Granger's niece and nephew and his next door neighbors, who are all poor but helped Mr. Granger when he was down and out on his luck. They're going to help give part of the inheritance to these four people, the four youth.
And the people that think they're getting it are not very good people.
No, I actually base that on some people that I really know.
Oh.
I just changed their names to protect the innocent, so to speak.
Or protect the guilty, right?
Yes, yeah.
Corella DeVille.
Oh, yes. I used the name DeVille to kind of bring to mind Cruella DeVille from the 101 Dalmatians. Yeah.
Yes. The two DeVille kids, Akron and
Tulsa,
right, named after towns. They're not very nice people.
No. And being a retired school teacher, I've seen some kids in the public schools that acted just like them. A lot of their actions were based on actual kids that I had seen in school.
Well, the characters are very real, all of them. Josh and Dylan, the mechanics that have lost their parents, that lived next door to Granger, I really liked them also.
And again, they are actually based on two friends of mine that I first met them when they were seniors in high school, and I didn't have to change their character that much. They're
Wow.
as honest and as good and as kind and considerate as the characters that I created in the novel.
Yeah, I like them. I like all of them. And I don't like the ones I'm not supposed to, so that works. Why don't you read us a little bit from The Mystery of the Lost Will?
This is from the middle of the book. And Kalani is looking for the possessions, the furniture and everything of Mr. Granger, because he's thinking that he wrote a second will and he hid it there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tracked down the possessions to the DeVille's summer home up at in a neighboring lake, Lake Vicida. And so he's walking up a lane to the DeVille summer cabin, and he's worried about running into the DeVilles. He's already had some problems with them before.
Okay.
As he approached the building, Kalani could see that the front door was slightly ajar. Thinking this was a little strange, he stopped short, not sure if he should continue up to the cabin or not. He didn't want another run-in with the DeVille twins. Standing at the front door, he carefully listened, and hearing nothing, he knocked. The door creaked open from the pressure of his knock, and he peered inside and saw an empty room. "Hello? Anyone home?" he said without raising his voice. Hearing nothing, he pushed the door open all the way and stepped in. The front room was bare, but looking down, he could see where a large rug had covered most of the floor. The outline of it was visible in a thin covering of dust. He walked around the clean area where the rug had been, and he saw small spots in the dust. He bent over and peered closely at them. After a moment, he realized they showed where the legs of chairs and a couch had been. He looked up and saw on the walls dark rectangles indicating where pictures had once blocked the sun from fading the wallpaper. The whole room had the appearance of having been recently emptied. He went into the adjacent kitchen. There he saw all the cabinets and drawers open and empty of contents. As he stood motionless in the middle of the room, it dawned on Kalani. Someone had broken into the cabin and robbed it of all of its furniture. Kalani felt his heart drop as he thought about his quest to examine Wyatt Granger's possessions stored somewhere in the cabin. He hurried from the kitchen and searched the other rooms for anything that once belonged to old Wyatt. But the rest of the cabin was just as bare as the front room and kitchen. All the rooms, that is, except for a second bedroom in the back of the cabin. There he found it almost empty. All that remained were the large rolled-up rug and a set of bunk beds. Kalani's shoulders slumped as he realized that the worldly goods of Wyatt Granger were missing, and gone, too, was any chance of finding a second will. As he made his way slowly back to the front door, Kalani thought how this tragic turn of events would devastate Josh and Dylan, Riley and Kaylee. Their disappointment in not inheriting part of Wyatt's fortune was going to be, in large part, his fault. If he had kept his nose out of other people's business, the old man's kind neighbors and relatives would not have had their hopes raised about another will, one that would solve their monetary problems. Kalani felt horrible knowing that he was about to be responsible for letting them down. Kalani was so absorbed in his failure that he didn't hear a heavy car door slam shut. He arrived at the open front door of the cabin and saw three men who had just climbed out of a blue and black van. As they approached the cabin, he saw that they were not members of the DeVille family. In an instant, Kalani realized that these men were the ones who had robbed the cabin, and they were coming back to pick up the remaining rug and beds. Quickly, he ran back to the nearest bedroom. No place to hide. He recalled seeing a closet in the farthest bedroom, but it was where the rug and bunk beds were located. The robbers would be headed for that exact room. He heard them enter the house and head his way to finish their burglary. He didn't have time to run and hide in the closet before they would spot him. Kalani dashed behind the door of the first bedroom and quickly and quietly pulled it all the way open so he was concealed behind it, his back against the wall. He was glad he was thin enough to fit into the cramped space. He heard the robbers' footsteps just inches from where he hid as they walked heavily past him to the back room. He held his breath, not daring to breathe, as they went by. He hoped he wouldn't have to sneeze or cough. But it was his stomach that gave him away. Just as the last robber was passing his hiding place, his stomach gave a loud growl. He hadn't eaten anything for breakfast, and his belly was telling him about it. Kalani froze, hoping against hope that the growl hadn't been loud enough to be heard. But the footsteps continued past the door, and Kalani quietly let out his breath. He was safe. Suddenly, the door he was hiding behind was shoved all the way to the wall, pinning him and smashing his nose. Then just as suddenly, the door swung away from him, and Kalani was staring down the business end of a .38 caliber pistol. He froze instantly, not even daring to wipe the blood slowly dripping down his nose. "Hey, guys, look, I found the driver of that old pickup parked on the road," he heard a gruff voice say. The man motioned Kalani to move away from behind the door as his two companions entered the room. His gun never wavered as Kalani slowly moved to the middle of the empty bedroom. Kalani gently wiped his nose on the sleeve of his T-shirt, but he never took his eyes off the man confronting him. He realized the thief was very comfortable with guns. He had seen his dad handle his own service revolver just as easily. Kalani was not going to give the man any excuse to shoot him, and both the other two men had guns tucked into their belts. Escape was out of the question.
Ooh.
Turning points of the plot.
Yes. And that's one thing I was going to say is I really like that it's all set in this area. All real areas.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes it easier to write about if I can visualize, and I can because I've visited all these places.
Mm-hmm.
But I also always kept in mind that the reader might not be familiar with this area.
Right.
So I did a lot to describe in as much detail as possible all of the locations and the people.
So if you are from here, you recognize it, but if you're not, you can still visualize it. So that works really well.
Right. That was my intention.
Now, Kalani, I don't want to give anything away, but at the end he goes, "This is my first detective act," or something to that effect. Does that mean we're going to see him again?
Yes, I've got a sequel already in the mill.
Oh, good.
That I've been showing to the other members of a class there at San Juan College,
Mm-hmm.
a writer's workshop class, and they're helping me critique it and finding errors.
That'll be good,
Yeah.
seeing Kalani and his brother again.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the writing process. How long
Okay.
did it take you to write And I know your first one was The Secret of the Haunted House. So how long did it take you to write The Mystery of the Lost Will?
Probably about 3 years.
Okay. Are you like an everyday writer?
It's sometimes the writer's workshop class really helped because about once every 5 weeks, I had to present a chapter to be critiqued by the other members of the class. So that made me write more.
Right. You have a deadline.
Yeah, and that helps me quite a bit.
Now, there's two kinds of writers. We call them pantsers and plotters. Which are you?
Well, the first book was strictly by the seat of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had no idea where the story was going. And it turned out to be kind of a neat story of a haunted house. But the second book was plotted out ahead of time because I used the plot of Nancy Drew mystery, but developed it quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I always gave the example of the movie and the story of West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
West Side Story is based on the plot of Romeo and Juliet, but yet obviously it's a completely new story, a completely new story.
Right. Brand new take on the whole thing.
Right.
So do you consider yourself a full-time writer?
No, this was, I've always had a yearning to write, and I still enjoy it, but not necessarily full. It's not full-time. I've got a lot of other activities that I'm involved with and do.
One of them is you work with young boys, don't you?
Right.
That's how you know Kalani.
Being a retired teacher, I've worked with youth. I have in the past with my church, and then also through the gym.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you have said there's a lack of middle grade novels for boys. Most of them are for girls. Was that something you kept in mind when you wrote these?
That was the original purpose of my writing. When I taught what was called junior high,
right,
back in the day, I noticed that junior high boys quit reading. When they were in elementary school, they enjoyed reading, but by the time they hit about 11 or 12 years old, they stopped reading. And being a teacher, I noticed that most of the young adult literature was aimed at girls.
Mm-hmm.
That's a time that girls start become involved in relationships. They become very relational. And young boys don't become relational until much later.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the literature for that age group deals with literature, and the boys just could care less at that age.
Right.
They still like adventure, blood and guts, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had enjoyed the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew mysteries when I was that age. So I thought, why not just take those stories and rewrite them, making them much more modern and giving some more depth to the characters. Plus, I also had a secondary purpose in taking a family, the Henderson family,
mm-hmm.
with strong kind of old-fashioned values of politeness, strong parental roles
mm-hmm.
that maybe would influence young readers.
Yeah, these are good kids. The boys are good boys. They don't look for trouble, and they always think about what they're doing. And I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Even though they got themselves into trouble, it wasn't because they were breaking the law.
They weren't looking for trouble,
Right.
dealing with drugs,
Right.
stepping outside the law,
Right.
right? And I tried to show the parent, and especially the father figure,
Mm-hmm.
as a strong father figure that loves his boys, but he's still firm with them.
You can see that in how Kalani always asks if he can drive the truck. Can I drive the truck?
True.
And his dad keeps saying, not yet.
Yes.
That's very good. Well, good. So we're going to see Kalani and Tristan again. I'm glad about that. Do you plan that you'll have a series of these then?
That's what I hope to.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were quite a few of the old Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy mysteries that were written, and so it's easy to have something already plotted out for you.
Right.
All I have to do is just modernize it,
mm-hmm.
give them modern dialogue, and more depth of character.
Right.
The characters are deeper and more filled out than like the Hardy Boys.
Now, you have some artwork in Mystery of the Lost Will. Did you do that?
No, that's a professional artist that my publisher found, and there's going to be some line drawings done at the head of each chapter.
Oh, good.
And that hasn't been completed yet. Once that is, then the book will be ready for publication.
Okay, and it's on pre-order now, you say?
Right, through my publisher, which is Crimson Dragon Publishing.
Okay, Crimson Dragon. Great. And you have a website, too, that people can go see your books, which is...
Right, and I think the first chapter is first chapter of each of the books is published, is on it.
And that's JackYerbyAuthor.com.
Right. All one word.
Okay.
JackYerbyAuthor.com.
Great. So they can get a look at that and find out updates on publication and things like that.
Right.
Well, keep writing.
I plan to.
Good.
I enjoy it.
Good. And I guess one thing about this book, even though it's geared at a younger age, it's very readable. I enjoyed reading it, and it kept me spellbound. So.
And something else that I wanted to include is that Kalani has a real good friend who is Navajo.
Right.
And by introducing him and giving him some of the action in the story, I'm introducing Navajo culture to readers that are not from this area.
Right, and you explained some things, or Danner, the friend, explained certain things about that culture.
Right. And that's what I like to do in my writing, is widen the horizons of readers from, let's say, the Midwest or
mm-hmm.
big cities back east in Navajo culture and even Southern culture by having the Henderson family be from Texas.
Right. I like Danner a lot, too. He's a great basketball player.
Yeah. And again, there is the real Danner that I'm basing that character on.
Oh, great. So that's why they're such realistic characters, because they are real characters.
Right. They really are, yeah. That writing their characters was easy.
The best thing to do to get the book at this point is go to crimsondragonpublishing.com or to your website, right?
Right.
Okay. And soon it will be able to be found at our local independent bookseller. Right. Great.
And I'm hoping that it's available through some of the bigger outlets, too.
Great.
My publisher has said something about it being available through Walmart.
Perfect.
Which would be great for me.
It would be. And The Secret of the Haunted House has also been republished by Crimson Dragon, correct?
Right. Both books will be available through Crimson Dragon Publishing.
And that was Jack Yerby talking about his new book, The Mystery of the Lost Will. This is Tracy Halesvass with Right on Four Corners on KSJE, the cultural beacon of the Four Corners.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.